Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dill Pickle Movie Network. I am Dylan Randazzo, and I will be talking about the newest film by Warner Brothers to debut in theaters and on HBO Max for the 30-day window, Tom and Jerry. Now, I will preface by saying I don't have a ton to say about this Tom and Jerry movie because it's not really a Tom and Jerry movie. My attachment to Tom and Jerry spans almost to the beginning of my childhood. Tom and Jerry was always something that was just kind of on that I would always watch. It wasn't even huge in my generation growing up, but I think it's really proved to stand the test of time, like the Looney Tunes cartoons. It's something that is from an older era, but still feels like it's always been present in the pop culture zeitgeist. So I had a very large familiarity with Tom and Jerry, the animated shorts as well as the animated film. So I had some excitement to see this film and to see these characters brought to life on screen. A lot of the marketing was heavily centered around Tom and Jerry, and the film is called Tom and Jerry, but it was interesting because Tom and Jerry, this isn't their story. The film is about a young woman named Kayla Forrester, who is doing a bunch of odd jobs and decides she really wants to make it big in this hotel industry. And so she scams her way into this high position for a very important wedding that is going to take place at this hotel. And it's about how she tries to prove to herself and to others around her that she is capable of this job that she has always dreamed of doing. A lot of you are probably hearing the description saying, well, what about Tom and Jerry? And that's exactly what I was thinking. Watching this movie, I was like, well, where do Tom and Jerry exactly fit into the story? And there is a whole side plot where Kayla has to basically exterminate these mice that are claiming to have been running around the hotel in preparation for this wedding. But that storyline only lasts a little while before it just trails off and it becomes more about Kayla and the hotel and the wedding itself. The storyline where Kayla is trying to catch the mice, in this case Jerry, is very short-lived. And, you know, if the whole movie was about this character chasing after Jerry and teaming up with Tom, and you know, you have this cat and mouse chase the whole time, it probably would have been enjoyable, family fun. But the problem is, so little of the movie is actually focused on Kayla in relation to Tom and Jerry that Tom and Jerry just feel like super subtle side characters in this movie, because this is Kayla's story, and it's okay to have a human character being the focus of the arc of the story, as long as the animated characters also get a ton to do. But here it seems like they had this focused story about Kayla but didn't really know what to do with the animated characters. And in a movie that's about Tom and Jerry, or supposed to be about Tom and Jerry, it was just a little surprising to me that they didn't have a better way to execute them into the story. I do think this is a strong cast in general. You have Michael Pena showing up in a supporting role. You have Colin Jost from SNL. I haven't seen him in a bunch of movies, so it was exciting to see him in this movie. But I feel like their comedic talents are just kind of squashed because of the material. I think because this is Tom and Jerry reinvented for a new modern audience, they needed to really point out every single modern aspect of the film, from twerking, some weird forced out of nowhere social commentary.
You're one of those millennials that thinks they can get whatever they want, whenever they want, without working for it.
And then Michael Pena saying Insta Snapbook face or whatever he said.
Instabook face or TikTok.
A lot of these jokes are just layered on top of each other, and they're not really jokes. They're just ways to say, hey, look how cool and modern we are. You know, this is Tom and Jerry, but we are in 2021, and here's every little ounce of modern slang we can throw at you, and it does not work at all.
Preferably with free shipping.
Who doesn't like free shipping?
I will say, when we are focused on Tom and Jerry themselves in this movie, and we kind of see their little side adventures and their side encounters, I think those are the most intriguing moments of the whole film, because it kind of takes you back to that classic cat and mouse, slapstick, silent humor that we're used to seeing from the classic cartoons. We also see they use archival footage of William Hanna and Mel Blanc's voices for Tom and Jerry. They were the ones who did all the sound effects and voices for the characters back in the original cartoon. So it was great to see their voices brought back to these characters. Again, if the movie was more focused on Tom and Jerry and just kind of went back to the roots of, you know, throwing them in a room with a bunch of sharp tools and a bunch of heavy hammers and things that could fall on them and smush them, and I think it would have been a lot funnier. But the thing is, they are so focused on executing this very stale, predictable human plot line, and there are full scenes that go on for 5 minutes where Tom and Jerry are nowhere to be seen. I really think the movie missed where the target audience was. If you're appealing to kids, you don't have enough Tom and Jerry in it. If you're appealing to people who had the nostalgia for Tom and Jerry, you don't have enough Tom and Jerry in it. And if you're appealing to adults, I mean, I think all that, like, forced, cringy humor
It's the book face, or
isn't gonna really vibe well with adults. I just don't think there's enough of anything for anyone to truly be the target audience for this film. It doesn't look terrible. The animation's fine. The characters are well animated. Again, those slapstick comedy bits, as rare as they are still fun. So I don't totally knock this movie as like one of the worst of the year, but I have to say it is one of the most disappointing, because as much as my expectations weren't super high, I was hoping they could at least deliver a fun family film. I can't necessarily say I recommend it, but I will say the best thing about this movie was that it had me wanting to go back and revisit the originals, which are all on HBO Max. So as soon as I finished watching on HBO Max, I immediately went back, typed in Tom and Jerry, and all the cartoons were right there, and I was able to watch through a bunch of them and kind of relive the nostalgia and the glory days of Tom and Jerry. So if it did one thing right, it was being so bad that I was so tempted to go back and see the good Tom and Jerry stuff. So that's my review for Tom and Jerry. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to check me out, I have my podcast coming out every Monday, Marvelous Movie Mondays with Kelsey and Dill, where we talk about all things Marvel. I also have a few new shows that I will be announcing tomorrow on the channel. We have 3 new shows for you. I am so excited to talk about that. One is a podcast that I teased earlier in my intro video, and 2 are brand new shows that have not been announced yet with 2 friends that I cannot wait to talk about. So please stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.